when we get to that. Good evening, everyone. I'll ask everyone to please take their seats so we can get started on time because I know your time is important. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Kimberly Cole. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Monterey. I also have on the stage with me Nazanin Salih, who is with Gold Farm and Lippman. She's an attorney who works on housing law and has worked on rental inventories and tenant protection for a great part of her career. This evening, we're here to talk about the rental inventory Monterey. And we really thank you for taking some time out to hopefully share your thoughts and ideas with us on this upcoming project. So we have some ground rules. I always share this at the beginning of any public meeting. Tonight's about listening respectfully to each other. I ask you to refrain from outbursts, boos, applause, whatever types of sounds there might be. But we do want to listen to what everybody has to say this evening. And then as a result, this meeting is being recorded. So we're going to ask you to please speak into the microphone so we can later post it on our website and allow a greater audience to hear input that you may have. So this agenda this evening, we have a presentation. I have about 15 slides to review with you on what a rental inventory is. We're then going to ask for the groups to have small group discussion. We have some prompt questions that our facilitators are going to be asking the tables. There'll be also an opportunity for you to record your question and comments, and then we'll discuss next steps. And with that, I'm going to introduce our Assistant City Manager, Nat Rajasthera.
Okay. Hi, everyone. We are here and wanted to gather your feedback on a few things. We're going to start by asking all of you to let me minimize this for one moment, to get a pulse of those who are online. We have over 60 participants on Zoom, and clearly several dozen of you here in the conference center with us live this evening. We wanted to understand what groups you identify with, whether you're a renter, a rental property owner, a property manager, a real estate agent, or perhaps represent a different group. So what we would like you to do is you have two options. You can either go to pollev.com/NATR 800 to respond to this question, or you can text in your response. So in the so this is where it's very interactive. We actually are looking for your participation and hope this is an opportunity for you to pull out your cell phones and whether you're online on Zoom or here in person, grab your cell phone and send a text message to 22333. And what you will do is text NATR 800. That will allow you to join this poll. We have a few questions that we'll be asking you this evening. We're trying to keep it interactive, and this poll EV tool will help us understand better how what groups you might identify with, and also hear some of your feedback in addition to the breakout sessions that Kim mentioned earlier. So again, we ask if you can pull out your cell phones, and we have a few facilitators here who might be able to help you if you're having some technological challenges, but bring out your cell phone and pull text to 22333. You would just text NATR 800, and then once you join the poll, we do ask that you either type in A, B, C, D, or E to identify what groups do you identify with. So please do that now, and we'll start to see some of the responses that come in. So we'll just take a few moments to do that. If you would, please take out your cell phones and wanted to get a picture here of whether you're a renter, you're a property manager, perhaps rental property owner, real estate agent representing the group today. Yeah, and if you're having a hard time, let's just see those here in the room. How many of you are renters? Just to get a good picture. Okay, we've got quite a few of you. And how many of you are rental property owners? Okay, excellent. How about property managers? How many of you are property managers? We've got a couple. How many of you are real estate agents? Okay, and then other. Okay, fantastic. So let's see. We have about 40 responses. So let's take a look and see what the responses look like. So we've got a mix of responses here. So far, we have 26% renters, 42% are rental property owners, 9% property managers, 12% of you are real estate agents, 13, and 15% others. So a good mix of representation from diverse voices and stakeholders in the Monterey community. Great. Okay. So the next one here is, what one word comes to mind when you think about rental inventory in Monterey? So we wanted to get your feedback. This is a word cloud. So once you feel free to type in your response when you're in the text message. And if you're a facilitator, raise your hand. And if you're having trouble with this tool, raise your hand and someone will come by and help you out. If you're having some challenges, we've got one up here. Hopefully those of you on Zoom can respond. Feel free to type in one word that comes to mind when you think about rental inventory here in Monterey. So a couple of words, we hear some responses about fairness, expensive, shortage, homeowner, scarce, bureaucracy, hope. This helps us get an idea of some of the feedback and some of your thoughts here as we look at how many people. We have a good group of probably maybe 50 to 100 folks here, plus all those online. So great, we've got some good feedback here. So thank you all for chiming in. The next question we're going to ask is, what are the most important types of information to collect to make a rental inventory useful? So what information is helpful for us to be able to make a rental inventory useful for the city? So we have price, quantity, none, utility. So of course, this word cloud and some of the feedback from this, we will be sure to share online as well for those of you who may still be working on typing in your response. Bedrooms, type, credit availability, income, taxes, rent, ownership, verification, cost, score, property, tenant, bedrooms. Okay. All right. And that ends our word cloud. We're going to be spending some more time. I'm going to go back to the presentation and let's hear about the background. Back to Kim Cole, our Community Development Director. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Nat. Those are always fun to do, and just to get a pulse of who's in the room and what are some of those immediate words or ideas that come to our mind. Just in terms of background, where did this start? In April, the City Council hosted a public meeting on tenant protection options And they directed staff to begin work on a rental registry and to return to the council in the future with more information on rent stabilization options. This evening, we're going to be really talking about the rental inventory because that's been the direct direction given to us by the council. And that was on a 4-1 vote in April. So why are we here? We're here to provide an opportunity to collaborate on the best way to build and manage a rental inventory. And so what is that? It's simply a database. It's usually an online database that provides a secure platform just for gathering essential information pertaining to rental properties only. So this doesn't apply to owner-occupied housing. It would apply to rental properties only in the city of Monterey. And so what's the purpose? Why would you want to collect this information? It can be used as a baseline to understand the real data so that local policy decisions can be made. Enforcement of regulations. For example, the city has a prohibition against short-term rentals. It provides us additional ways to find out information about our rental housing stock. To ensure compliance with safety codes and track changes in the rental housing market. So I think first and foremost, it can serve as a basis to make informed policy decisions in the future. So what type of information is typically collected? This really varies by jurisdiction. At sort of the minimum, we see things like contact information, who's leasing property, who's renting property. We have copies of leases, including the price of rent, services, and potentially even utilities. There will be information typically collected about unit characteristics, how many rooms, bathrooms in the unit, also rent increases. And so we can evaluate or try to understand how rents are changing in Monterey. Occupancy rates, tenant turnover, and compliance with existing laws, like business licenses. So how is the information collected and stored? Typically, property owners can upload the relevant information into a secure software database provided by the city. This is done by many jurisdictions in the state of California. And we are going to be looking at an option to have a computer and staff available with technical assistance at City Hall. So maybe, excuse me, you need help inputting information that's uncomfortable for you. We will have staff members available to help you to input information into the database. So how are rental registries or rental inventories typically funded? City staff will be proposing a fee to the city council to consider that will cover the cost of implementing the program. So we'll take the total cost of the program and divide it by the number of properties in the rental inventory is an option, and then to establish the fee. That fee would then be charged to rental property owners as part of the registry process, and then potentially passed on to tenants. So we've been interviewing cities that have been doing this for a long time and some newer cities as well. And what did we learn? First of all, registries revealed that the unit count and location discrepancies were discovered in comparison to the county database. So it provides a more precise record of the actual units in your community. It does require dedicated staff to implement. This is not a program that just sits on a shelf. It will require a lot of interaction with city staff members and trying to get the community to upload their information into the database. Fees are typically structured, as I mentioned, on a cost recovery model. And based on our research, they range from anything from $20 to $250 per unit annually. Salinas just published their fees today, and it's based on groupings of units, 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. They have various price structure. the city of Salinas is looking at or is in the process of implementing a rental inventory as well. So next steps. We're looking to collect and analyze information gathered at tonight's town hall meeting to begin drafting the rental inventory ordinance as directed by our city council. And so that next step is after we draft that ordinance, it would be brought in front of the city council at a public hearing where the public will have an opportunity to provide comments on the draft ordinance. It usually requires, most ordinances require 2 hearings, a first and second reading, and then eventually it becomes law. I really recommend for you to follow this topic. Current and future updates can be found at, if you type in the computer, Monterey.org/rental inventory. There's an opportunity to subscribe there, and that's how we will be getting additional information out to people that attend events like this and want us to be generally kept apprised of the rental inventory process. So we didn't want to spend too much time up here just presenting all the aspects of a rental inventory, but we wanted to give you a general overview of the concept. And then we really want to turn it over to you and your roundtable discussions. We have facilitators, and if my facilitators can raise their hands, and we're going to try to have 1 per table. It might be 1 per every 2 tables. And we have flip charts around the room, and we're going to bring those to the table. We have some starter questions for you that we thought might help facilitate discussion and input. So first of all is, what are your initial thoughts about the rental inventory? We would like to record those. What information is the most useful to include in the rental inventory? What information would you like to see omitted from the rental inventory? And then what questions or concerns do you still have that need to be addressed through this process? So those are some starter questions. So I'm going to ask all the facilitators if you can grab an easel and well, we're going to report out. We don't really have an opportunity for that tonight, but when you have you can report out your any thoughts or concerns. Well, it's not going to be recorded, so I don't think that's helpful. Yeah. Let's. Okay. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and have our facilitators, they're meant to record your comments and concerns. And if you have a technical question about a rental inventory, Nazanin and myself can come to your table and try to answer that specific question as you're providing your input this evening. And at the same time, there will be an online version of this happening, so we can also try to record questions and concerns. Thank you.
So it would be really helpful if you guys want to consolidate and fill in all the tables so that the facilitators are able to share share the tables and be able to communicate with you guys better. So if there's
How-
2s and 3s,
Yes.
can you guys help fill in some of the tables?
And for the Spanish speakers, there will be a table where we can do this in Spanish. Para quienes requieran hacer esto en español, tenemos esta mesa en la esquina para hacer la encuesta en español.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So hopefully you can hear me right now. I apologize, we're just trying to get the technical side of this all squared away. Right now we have the Q&A box open. I'm seeing plenty of questions. I've been trying to answer them as they come in. So we're going to try, I'm going to give you just a moment here. I'm going to try and make it so that I can reach out to you and allow you to speak one at a time. And then I'll be doing my best to record any questions that you have, any thoughts you might have. You can see the discussion topics right here in front of us. And yeah, and we'll try and stick to that as best as we can. And just give me another moment here and we'll get it all started. All right, everyone, we're still getting it all fixed here. I'm trying to answer some questions that are being written right now in the Q&A portion. Please just keep those coming in and go ahead and start raising your hands if you would like to speak. We're going to try and give everyone about 90 seconds to speak. I'll have a timer going on here, and we will have also Spanish translation if requested. So we do have that ability here, and we'll have somebody be able to sit here live and help you out if you require that. So just stand by just another moment. Thank you so much for being patient with us. All right, everyone, it looks like I finally have the ability to go ahead and let people speak who have their hands raised. Please continue to use the Q&A function if you'd like to. I will try to respond to questions that we may have answers to, but if we don't have an answer, I'll be sure to record your question, and we'll be recording as much as we can to focus on getting feedback on all of this after the end of the session. Also, I want to invite our interpreter to go ahead and speak to our Spanish-speaking audience real quick. So give me just one moment.
Ok, buenas tardes. Soy la intérprete. Mi nombre es Ángeles Jiménez. Cualquier pregunta que tengan, si la quieren, si necesitan interpretación a español a inglés, de inglés a español, estoy disponible. Y si no tenemos respuestas a sus preguntas, podremos escribirlas para tenerlas de referencia en el futuro.
Okay, and with that, we will go ahead and get started, allowing some folks to speak. So the first hand I see raised is Christy Thomas, and I'll go ahead and give you the ability to speak. And Christy should be good to go right now.
Thank you. I know this is all preliminary, and even though I am a renter, I guess I'm curious as what is the benefit is this going to be for the landlord? When I heard her mention that there would be fees when, and I'm sure you're aware that rentals are so tight, people don't even have to put them on Craigslist or Nextdoor. They just put signs out. And the social media things are free. And for the renter side, going to Craigslist or free scrolling on the property management sites are also free. So that's what I'm curious about. What would be the big benefit for the property owner or the landlord?
All right. Thank you, Christy. Yeah, so we have more information. If you go to our Have Your Say Monterey.org/rental inventory, and I can get that information out to you. So it'll be a clickable link, hopefully here at some point in the meeting. But if you go online, you can see the information we have provided. Right now, we're just exploring kind of how this would be, what we could potentially do to implement this in a way that is effective for both landlords and tenants. And we appreciate your feedback, and I've written that down, and we'll keep that in mind. All right, so next I have Charlotte. Charlotte, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the ability to speak and share whatever questions or concerns you have.
So my question is just whether accessory dwelling units are going to be included in the rental inventory. I'm not sure what the distinction is between owner occupied property and ADUs. Because I'm not sure what percentage those represent in the city of Monterey.
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you, Charlotte. So, and that's just something that we don't have hard data on right now, and that's I think something that we might be able to find in a way through rental inventory potentially. But it's something we'll have to keep in mind. And thank you so much for sharing with us. All right, so next I have Jyoti. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a chance to speak right now. Should be able to go ahead. Jyoti, if you're speaking, we can't hear you, unfortunately.
Oh, my speaker is hello.
Yes, hello.
Hello, sir. Thank you for giving us to the opportunity. I'm curious about. I have a small apartment. I'm renting. I have a. That's why. What is the benefit for the renter people who doesn't have that much money to pay the rent?
All right, thank you so much. That's something that we'll have to keep in mind. I'll make a note of that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Give me just one more moment. All right, everyone. So we're going to get some help here answering some of your questions, hopefully give you a little more detail. We have Nazanin Salehi here, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and how she can help us out.
Hello. Hi, my name is Nazanin. I am a special counsel or outside counsel to the city, helping on the rental inventory, just providing my knowledge around this issue. And I'm here to answer questions that you might have that would be helpful to you to give feedback on this process. So, yeah.
All right, awesome. Okay, so we're going to kind of share my screen here.
Sure.
And we'll keep going. So let's see. So Becky Jones, I see you had your hand raised, and we'll go ahead and give you the ability to speak on here right now. So please, Becky, go right ahead.
Thank you. So I am speaking as not only a property owner that has rentals, but also as a realtor. So a couple things come to mind. I don't really understand the purpose. I read what the purpose is, but I think you guys are kind of missing the boat here. And I think that we need to really discuss the unintended consequences that occur by you doing this. So as a landlord, I will tell you, I haven't raised rent on my tenants for years. I will now. So I think the unintended consequence is just that. Your tenants that here in the city are going to see their rents go up because of fees and for other reasons. The concern about, raising the rents and having rent control come in. Also, I think as a realtor, I think your investors are going to leave the area and these properties will be sold. And as a realtor, hey, that's great. We'd love to sell them. But that has just taken off units of the rental market. That is a shame. So you're going to be discouraging investors from purchasing properties here for rentals. Question about what information's included. You know, the first thing that came to mind when I heard of some of the questions that some have said would be included are privacy issues. You know, I personally, there's privacy issues, and I would not submit who is renting, and they're for safety issues. I think you need to take that into consideration, and homeowners' rights. You know, it's starting to feel that we really don't have rights to be homeowners in here in the city of Monterey. I've lived in the city of Monterey for many, many years and have multiple properties, and I'm really disappointed to see it go this way. Thank you.
All right, Becky, thank you so much for your comment. Nazanin, did you want to share have any feedback for that?
I didn't hear a question in there, so.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Becky. We went ahead and I wrote down everything that you brought up, and those are good points, and well, it's something we'll have to keep in mind moving forward. All right, so Gwen de Amaral, I see your hand raised, and I'm gonna go ahead and give you the ability to speak right now. So Gwen, we welcome you.
Hi, thank you. And you actually pronounced the last name right, so thank you for that too. Thank all of you, first of all, for even having this open forum tonight. I think it's very helpful for all of us to share our ideas. And I'm glad to hear a lot of the previous calls, because I too think this is a waste of resource. You know, there's already existing platforms, Zillow and Redfin, and I just used that recently. I had hundreds of people that were able to have access and information about this property that we have. On the platforms, you know, they provide photos, they provide the square footage, lease information. So I personally just think this is a waste of personal resources and personnel staff for the city of Monterey. So I would not be in support of pursuing this. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
All right, Gwen, thank you so much. Nazanin, do you have anything to add for this one? All right, so thank you, Gwen. I went ahead and took note of everything you said, and I appreciate it. So we'll move on to the next person. So let's see who we have on here next. So Aubrey Young, I see you with your hand raised right now. We'll go ahead and give you the ability to speak here. And Aubrey, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I had to give my phone permissions. So yeah, my name is Aubrey. I moved to Monterey about a year ago. If you folks ever use the website Reddit and look up Monterey rentals, you'll see that it is pretty abysmal in terms of being able to find something. I moved here for work, full-time position. My position is very migratory. So once you have 2 years, you can basically move anywhere in the United States and find work. So a year from now, I'm going to look around, see what I can afford. And if the community isn't giving the sort of property that, you know, guarantees me privacy for about what I can make, then I'm going to go ahead and migrate to back to the Bay Area or back to SoCal. I will mention I'm in my 30s. I managed to find an apartment on my own. If you try to find someone who's in their 30s and can find their own place, depending on how much they make, you're not going to find very many. So I understand this is a very solid and vibrant community, but in terms of if you want young folks moving in who are just getting settled and they're trying to figure out where they want to live, it's not a great rental market. And the fact that there's going to be a rental inventory is honestly my main reason for seeing whether there's any point in settling down here and making Monterey my permanent home. So I just want to say thank you folks for considering a rental inventory. It's really vital for housing equity. And that's ultimately what's going to determine whether I stick around in Monterey for any extended time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that feedback, Aubrey. I went ahead and made a note of all of that, and thank you so much for participating with us. All right, so let's see who we have next. Next we have, I see Laura Nagel. I'm gonna go ahead and give you permission to speak right now on here. There you go, Laura. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Yes, I'm in favor of this rental inventory. Live in Del Monte Beach. I guess I'm in the other category. I'm a homeowner, but I'm past president of the association, and I know we have a lot of of rental units, but I think it's difficult for renters to find their place here, you know, and that a rental inventory would help marry landlords with renters. And it will also help the city to know how many properties are in inventory and what their condition is. We know we have older housing in Monterey, and we need to do what we can to bring things up to code compliance. I like the question about the ADUs and whether or not they should be included. I personally think they do. They should be included. And that single family homes that are rented out should also be included. I'm concerned about the high number of vacant vacation homes that we have here in our neighborhood. We know affordable housing is an issue for the future of this city, and we've got to do a lot to bring affordable units and housing in general online. And one of the things that we can do is tax people who are leaving units vacant 8 months or more out of the year. So I'm glad to see the city moving in this direction, and I want to do what I can to support it. I think it's the way to move forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments, Laura. I went ahead and made a note of all of that. I think what we're going to start doing is, so we're obviously operating on one laptop right now, and I see a lot of questions, like very specific questions popping up in the Q&A box over here. So I might see if Nazanin can maybe answer some of those while we continue to listen and record comments from folks that want to speak on the mic. And next we have Lori Mazuka. Lori, I'm going to go ahead and give you the ability to talk to us starting right now. So go ahead, Lori, whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. I unmuted myself. I think I have some questions in here, and maybe you can answer at least one of them before I go on. I was on the last council call on this topic when probably the majority of people spoke up, like as we're hearing on this call, about the unintended consequences, and yet the council voted it in. And in the presentation given in that call, I thought it was very clear that only, I don't remember the name of the law, maybe the lawyer sitting there can help, Hawkins something or Hawks something, but only 10 plus rental unit buildings can be included legally in this rental inventory. So none of the single ADUs, single family homes, any rentals up to 9 would not be included in this, only 10 plus rentals. So before I go on, is that correct?
Thank you for your question. So Costa-Hawkins actually doesn't regulate rental registries. Costa-Hawkins regulates rent stabilization laws and provides that rent stabilization or rent control cannot be applied to single family homes. It doesn't limit anything beyond that. So it could apply, rent stabilization could apply to a duplex or anything, above that. So no, there's no limitation in state law currently as it relates to the number of units that a property would have to have in order to be subject to a local rental inventory.
Okay, thank you. So that's very different than what I at least understood on that council call, which is, and so anyway, I think then a lot of what the other callers are saying about individual property owners, in addition, I think just some of my initial thoughts are that, yes, it adds another layer of, city government bureaucracy and red tape, the privacy laws. I'm wondering how many more full-time with benefit and retirement positions are going to be hired to not only put this together, but through the long run to run it. And like another caller had said, I am in agreement that I feel like there could be better uses of that resource just to see what would the end goal really be, and maybe we won't know until it's all said and done. But I think that's it for now. Thank you for clarifying that. So if I understand correctly, the intention of the city in doing this would be to include every single rental, including your ADUs or on your property, and a single rental.
All right, Lori. So I want to go ahead
Thank you.
and say thank you. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Nazanin, do you want to make a comment about that last bit?
Yeah, so whether, the number of units or the types of units to which this will apply, that is sort of the type of feedback that we're hoping to get today in order to provide council with information. And ultimately, it will be a policy decision for council to make about what types of units and what number of units a rental inventory would apply to. So there's no set intent currently.
All right, so TBD on that, but please continue to share your thoughts so that we know, what folks are most concerned about seeing and potentially in our rental inventory. Okay, so I see someone with the initials RS. So RS, I'm going to go ahead and give you the ability to speak on here. And RS, whenever you're ready, please go right ahead.
Yes, hi. Thank you for this opportunity. I think it's great that we get to speak up and be part of the process. I guess I have a two-part question. I had read that this potential database may cost up to $400,000 a year. And I was wondering, what else is the city doing or redirecting resources to kind of solve the affordable housing in Monterey at the root cause of the problem? So for example, water is water supply or limited water supply is one of the huge reasons why we don't have as much housing and hence limiting the housing supply. Well, what is the city doing to tackle that part? And are you directing any resources towards that? And also, we hear about rents increasing, but what is the city doing to tackle the cost of these housing units? Insurance went up this year 12%. HOA fees are going up 6%. Property taxes go up every year. So why not tackle both sides of the equation, the cost side and the rent side, versus just continuing to impose rent controls and rent stabilization while ignoring the other side of the formula, which is the cost that's driving up the rent? It seems to be myopic or one-sided to only tackle one side. So can we please have the city council look at both sides of the equation? And the other part of my question is, I had read on your website this would primarily benefit renters. So why is it being paid for by landlords? Why not charge the renters the $400,000 a year cost for this database? All right, these are my two main questions. Thank you.
Okay, RS, thank you so much for your feedback. I just do want to be clear that we're not intending for this to, benefit one side in this debate, but we will take all of everything that you mentioned under consideration, and when we're planning on proposing something to council moving forward. So thank you very much. Let's see. So we have Audrey Wardwell. Audrey, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the ability to talk to us right now. So Audrey, feel free to go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the time to speak on this matter. My main concern is really the $400,000 it's going to take to run this program, when really we have a lack of housing available to people in our community. And I think we are missing the boat in focusing on that. If people are looking at Redfin and Zillow and they're feeling that it's dismal, it's because there isn't a lot of inventory out there, and having a registry isn't going to be a source for these renters to come in and see all these available properties that they're not finding. They're still going to be rented anyways. And so that's my big concern. But Nazine, as our expert here today, I would love to hear more how you think this benefits our community.
All right, thank you, Audrey, and we'll have Nazanin give her an opportunity to address your concerns.
Yeah, so first I will say that policy decisions are not up to me. I can merely tell you what the purpose of a rental inventory is. And first, I think most people agree that when you want to create policy, you want to have the most accurate information about the community and about the needs of the community and the trends within the community. And so a rental inventory is one way of doing that. It's collecting the most accurate information. And this is one of the questions that I answered in the Q&A about, why not Zillow? Why not all of these other platforms? And while those platforms are great right now as sort of a placeholder, they're not accurate. The most accurate information is going to come, and most comprehensive information is going to come from a database that is run by the city, and that everyone that the city council chooses to cover is required to participate in. And that is going to give the council the most accurate information on which to create policy moving forward. In addition, as I think one of the speakers said, and it's a really great point, it also gives you an idea of what exists out there, and sort of the condition of it. And so, if there are properties where there are maintenance issues and other ongoing violations, an inventory is one way that you can address those and get to that. There are just a number of benefits in order to make this a safer and healthier community for everyone that's living in it, and to make sure that people are complying with the regulations that are already in place. I think one of the other things that Kim talked about in her presentation was, ensuring compliance with already existing regulations, such as your short-term rental ordinance, or your business license requirements. And those are important, again, to the health and safety of the community. And so I think those are just some of the benefits of having a rental inventory, and ultimately, the goals and sort of the purpose will be up to the council to decide.
All right, thank you. So let's move on and see who else we have here. So we're going to be taking about probably 3 to 4 more folks on here to speak on Zoom. So I have Cora Pantorad. I'm going to go ahead and give you the ability to speak. And Cora, whenever you're ready, please go ahead and join us. Or it looks like you're unmuted, but I cannot hear you, unfortunately.
Hi, can you hear me?
So we got you now.
Perfect. All right. Well, so I want to start with my initial thoughts on this inventory. So I'm a renter here in Monterey, and I think that this is a really excellent first step. We can't fix something that we're not monitoring. So when we look at the housing crisis and rents that are becoming more and more unaffordable, this is really just gathering data. And I know that that's going to be the first step for policymakers and for the community to know what's going on and really get a handle on this situation. And it's also going to be the first step to adding inventory. I know that with the recent legislation that's come up with, I believe, SB 8 and other opportunities that are coming down the pipeline, it's going to be very difficult for us to make a cohesive plan if we don't have this inventory of good data that we can work off of. And it's interesting hearing about the resources question of $400,000 a year, because that is something that is an investment of our city to make sure that our income stays with our community and our residents, so they have more choice and personal freedom on what they want to spend their money on. So some other aspects that I would like to see in this, I mean, the obvious ones are the price and size and square foots, but I think that the age of the building, any recent retrofits that have been done, average utility bills, the type of fuel that's being used indoors, like
Go
all
on
of
to the
these would be
next
good
phase
information.
here. If I can ask all our facilitators to come up to the front of the room with your boards, please.
Cora, thank you so much for joining us. It looks like we're going to go ahead and get back to our big group now on Zoom. So I'll go ahead and stop here and we'll kick it over to Kim Cole to go ahead and
Does anyone
send us out the rest of the way. Thank you all.
Fernanda Rivera is a principal planner with the city, and we'll let her share.
All right. Hi, everyone. I represented two tables here. And the initial thoughts that they had was that the rental inventory was not needed, that it could hurt renters, turn landlords into slumlords, divide community. It could create bureaucracy, that property management costs will increase, that all costs ultimately flow to tenants. It could negatively impact sales of homes and or lower home values, destroy privacy for landlords and renters. It ignores the law of supply and demand, prevents renters from negotiating rents with landlords because prices will be available to the public. It does not take into account money that landlords put into their buildings. There could be misunderstanding about how this affects renters and if there will be fees to renters. There's a concern about privacy information and disclosing the address and the rental price for that rental address. That the cost of the program is better spent by increasing city workers' salaries so they can afford rents here. That it could cause collusion among property owners to increase rents. That's it for number one.
Hi, my name is Christy. So the initial thoughts from my two tables were this is moving too fast. We haven't exhausted other less expensive options. There's concerns about the invasion of privacy. Unclear what the benefits are. What question will the inventory answer that we don't already know? How is the inventory different than Zillow? It has nothing to do with providing new housing. Why rents are high? Because the city raises fees. How will the registry provide affordable housing? Does the registry have relevance to provide affordable housing? This is a time suck and distraction to staff, and staff should spend more time on creating housing supply for the RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment. Increased cost to tenants and landlords, too expensive to run, and the concern about PRA request and maintaining privacy.
Hi, everyone. My group, I also spoke with two tables. A lot of our initial thoughts were also questions. So why are we doing this if it doesn't solve the problem? The expense on landlords is not being heard. There's always another side of the equation. It's an invasion of privacy. Will landlords be able to recoup the loss? The turnover rate from the rental inventory is important for renters to see. We had a comment on just the definition of short-term rentals and wanting to get clarity between short-term rentals and what our regularly allowed rentals are. Data gives us information to make responsible decisions about the community, and also be able to respond and report to state level leadership. What are the potential benefits to renters for a rental inventory? How can I, as a landlord, opt out of being known by the tenant? Currently, the property manager is a go-between. Just generally, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Why do they need a copy of the lease, which is a private contract between two parties? And what happens if the correct information isn't provided into the rental inventory? Is there, what is the enforcement? Is there some kind of prosecution for accidental mistakes?
Thank you. Hi. Our questions also, or our initial thoughts also included questions. The first one is, Owners should have a choice of whether to be included or provide information. Not sure how it would help or how it would be beneficial. What info, if any, will be made public, including by PRA request. Concerns about added costs and breakdown. I got requests to break down the 400,000 estimate. Invasion of privacy of renter and owner, including names, lease information, property, and rental status. Meaning, is the rental vacant or how many people live there? Burden of cost on the landlord and the tenant. Rent increase on everyone every year. This was because of that added fee to cover the program. There were concerns about that falling to the renters. They also were saying this leaves no choice for the landlords but to charge extra. Some properties have not raised their rent, creating a senseless and costly bureaucracy, and landlords sensitive to increased costs and the potential to that cost being passed down towards the renters.
Okay, thanks everybody. So the first initial comments we had were regarding noticing for these meetings, and wanted to ensure that there would be better noticing in the future for the council meetings specifically. Our comments include don't record rent or rent increases, no more government involvement. I have a few questions. How can the city mitigate risk to property owners? Can owners opt in? Don't pass on costs to owners, it trickles down to renters. This is a violation of a right to privacy for a number of reasons, including the right to charge specific rents. And then this is a scarcity problem, and that we need to focus on the water issue.
Good evening. I had a group of about a dozen people, and a lot of it will be repetitive of what you've already heard. One of the concerns, initial thoughts, was suspicion of what the information is going to be used for. There seems to be a lack of knowledge of why the city wants this information. And then what are the consequences if the information is not provided? There's a belief that it creates division between owners and tenants, and that was mentioned earlier by another group. And this was also mentioned, creating inventory doesn't solve the issue of not having enough housing units. There was a comment that the city should take a one-time snapshot of the current inventory rather than spending the $400,000 for an ongoing program. There was a question of how many employees will it take to manage the program? And again, what will be done with the information that is collected?
Some initial thoughts from our team included the fact that they did not believe it was necessary, or at least certain members of the group did not think it was necessary, specifically because the landlord and renter wouldn't use it, that the fair market would be more powerful than establishing some form of rent control. The ability to have the market rent helps local renters versus being tied to something from the city. Another comment made is that it felt socialist. There was also concern about general stability of the market in the area. Also, a comment was that they felt the inventory would strengthen renter-landlord relationships as opposed to weaken them. And that it could help the health of tenants and increase transparency for renters and landlords alike. And then we have Mark Ackerman, who talked with the people who were on Zoom.
Okay, yeah, so you should be able to hear me. So I spoke with the Zoom group. I have some of their initial thoughts. So some of the things that came up were rents will be raised now and before this ever gets instituted. It's hard to find rentals here for young renters, especially. They had questions about what are we doing to address root causes. So a lot of this you've already heard from the other groups. What are rental units missing right now? And some folks were concerned with the fact that it's difficult to plan or make policy decisions without the data, and then also privacy concerns. So I'll pass it off now. One more.
My table only had 2 renters, and their thoughts is for the first question, the initial thoughts is that this is something very good, so the city regulates rentals. And the information that would be useful to include in the rental inventory would be to have a real inventory to see. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, then, okay.
All right. So now let's. Oh, still? Okay. Do you have other comments about number 1?
Well, I just wanted to say it in Spanish.
Oh.
So is that esto es muy bueno para que la ciudad regule las rentas.
All right, so the number 2 question was, what information is most useful to include in the rental inventory? My group thought nothing would be useful to include. And then they also said aggregated data only number of bedrooms / bathrooms and square footage, the rent amount, owner names, not corporation name. So the name of the owners who own the corporation that owns the property.
Okay, some of the responses to my 2 tables is the option not to have one. Rental history, the person renting. How do we include those that would like to rent but can't afford it? How do we get to know who these people are? Not sure we want a rental registry, and need for a study or survey that is anonymous rather than a rental registry. And the general cost per square feet of renting in different parts of the city.
For what to include in the rentals, our group wanted to only include what is already publicly available via Zillow, Redfin, etc. And we had about 7 out of 12 of our group agree on that, and that there's plenty of information already publicly available. Our group wanted to include the turnover rate and how rent has increased or changed year over year. We also had a question, if all information is publicly available, why pay the government for a database?
Group also mostly thought nothing would be helpful to include. Also listed was the renters, rental history and references. Like they wanted to know, how is this person renting in the past? And how did that go?
Yeah, same. Our group generally did not want a rental registry and wanted all information omitted.
Similar comments from my group. They wanted to know, who the information would be helpful to whom. And they thought that emergency contact for the property should be the only thing that the city should require.
Mine had a few more, including the square footage of the property, the year built, and any recent renovations to the property. Also wanted to include any necessary improvements on the property. Might explain why rent is being charged. A comparison of the property rent to Section 8 housing data. Wanted to include the insurance rates, which you can't really do, but that would also feed into it, along with the property tax. The number of water meters at the property was another piece of data to include. Whether or not the owner lives on site, as well as the tenants. The general market value of the property, no matter what the year built would be. The income of the tenants themselves, and the minimum wage at the time in a comparison to that.
All right, on Zoom, We had a lot of information that was typed in, but some of the information that came up when we were speaking, let's see, we had folks were curious about whether ADUs or single family homes would be included. We talked about utility bills, the age of the property, last renovations, square footage, price of the property, and any properties that were vacant for a good chunk of the year.
It would be to have a real inventory and to see how many rentals are real. This means that the ads that they were seeing while they were looking for a place to rent gave foothold to abuse because certain supposed landlord wanted a deposit on a fictitious rental, which was on Craigslist. So it would be great to see what's available at a reasonable, regulated, or subsidized price with limits on top prices. Sí, entonces la información que quería saber que se incluyera en el inventario sería que fuera real para saber cuántas rentas son reales. Eso quiere cuántos lugares son reales, porque esto puede dar lugar a abusos, ya que cierto supuesto dueño de un lugar a rentar quería un depósito, pero era ficticio, o sea que esta propiedad no estaba en renta y estaba en Craigslist. Entonces podría ser muy bueno que tener una lista disponible que sea razonable, regulada y con un precio que tenga subsidio y también límites en cuanto a lo máximo que se puede cobrar.
Thank you. So now moving to question number 3, what information would you like to see omitted from the rental inventory? So some of the thoughts here were rent amounts, names of renters and landlords, addresses, omit anything other than basic inventory information like number of bedrooms and square footage, copies of leases and rental agreements, and terms of lease.
Information to be omitted, personal information, lease documents, rent prices, and anything that would require regular reporting.
What to omit from our group would be turnover rate, the copy of the lease, mandatory participation in the rental inventory, names and contact information, so private information, everything, and social security numbers.
My group's information not to include consisted of names, rental price, renter's history, and also everything. They also did not seem to be fans of having a lease uploaded to any kind of database.
Similarly, my group just did not want anything to be listed. So
Ditto, everything but the emergency contact.
Don't include the mortgage status of the property and no names, ethnicity, personally identifiable information.
All right, so we didn't have anything that was expressly stated not to be included, but there were a lot of people that had privacy concerns, so you can imagine.
The same here, to regular and no names or private information on tenants. Que también lo mismo, que no hubiera ninguna información de contrato ni de la información privada de los arrendatarios ni de los arrendadores.
Thank you. The fourth and final question was, what questions or concern still need to be addressed? So some of the thoughts were penalty for non-compliance, how to tell who's not complying, how do we solve the real problem, the housing supply problem, incentive for compliance, vacancy taxation. Why spend money on short-term rental consultant or enforcer if the rental inventory staff can do both jobs? Sunset provision, when will this end? Cap or limit on programmatic costs?
Okay, questions or concerns that still need to be addressed? Is there a landlord protection element, such as when tenants trash the unit? Do you add that to the inventory? What would the enforcement mechanism be for the inventory? What is the purpose of the inventory? Whether the city has studied small versus large landlords? How do these regulations impact small versus large landlords? What are the effects on the larger market? Net loss of housing units? Is compliance mandatory? Is there a reward for compliance? How does this help landlords? When will rent control be initiated? City should address the fact that two people spoke at the city council meeting and said rent registries did not work in their cities and the properties sold as a result. Can you keep track of evictions? Who pays the landlord when the renters don't pay the rent? If I sell my property because of government overreach, rent control and rent registry, rents will go way up due to new mortgage and property taxes. How does this help tenants? Impacts to individual small landlords that may rent just one property? And what is the annual cost of the rental registry?
The outstanding questions and concerns from our group and also just general final thoughts. What is the monetary compensation for hacked information from the inventory? Again, just a concern of invasion of privacy. The only information we're comfortable sharing is what is on Zillow or Redfin, et cetera. As such, what is the benefit of incurring the $400,000 charge or debt to the city to create a rental inventory? Is the $400,000 for the inventory a fee that's every year, or is it just the first year, and will that increase or decrease over time? Building this inventory will incur a cost and do nothing to increase the available housing, and it would actually raise rent. Whose idea was this locally? Who brought it up? What are other cities doing and how is it going for them? How does Zillow collect their information? Because Zillow and Redfin are already paying to manage a similar database. How does it benefit Monterey to pay to reinvent the wheel? Is there a way to access this information through Zillow or Realtor.com? Realtors pay to have access to MLS, so why should renters have access to this information if they don't have access to MLS? Is rental inventory assisting with credit background checks, assisting with the process of conducting creditor background checks to find good renters, which is something that a realtor already does? What problem are we trying to solve? If the problem we all agree on is affordable housing, this is not the solution. And private information that's not protected puts military members and other landlords at risk.
My group was also wondering how that $400,000 estimate would be spent, like the breakdown of the expenses. They also asked what stage in this process are we in, and if it is for sure happening or if it's still a maybe. What info will be made to the public, including via PRA requests, like maybe what is already public and then what would need to be requested, and would they be able to access that kind of information like names? Will landlords sell property instead of dealing with inventory? Or will the properties come off the market and raise the prices of rentals? Has there been an analysis to show how this is beneficial and for who it would benefit, if it is a benefit?
Just restating some of the questions I mentioned, but how can the city mitigate risk to property owners? Can property owners opt in? Some other questions that came up. When will the city council make a final decision on this? How can we better be involved with this? That was it.
One of the comments from my group was that there was a concern about displacement due to owners maybe having an influx of selling their property because they don't want to deal with the bureaucracy. They could convert an apartment complex into condos or sell a single family house that could become an owner occupied unit. There was a comment that, you know, they want to know really what the program is about and what is it for before they can provide additional comments. There was a feeling that there's a lack of transparency and a lack of the ability for public input. It feels very rushed. And then one of the questions was, will it really benefit anybody? There was a comment about the local military and how does that affect the housing market. Somebody made a comment that in the ordinance, if the registry is used for rent control, that the ordinance is terminated. That there's a difference between just getting the information and then getting the information and then using it for some type of rent control program. There should be a focus on new housing and supply. And there was a comment that there was a study done in Seattle where they instituted a rent control program. And it shows that a lot of properties sold and it had a negative effect on the rental market in Seattle.
A couple concerns brought up in my group were that insurance is already hard on the peninsula and State Farm is no longer insuring on the peninsula, for instance. Also that rent control protects the current renter, but not necessarily future renters.
All right, so some of the things that came up on Zoom, a lot of the same stuff, but one of the questions was, will ADUs be included? Will investors leave the area? Properties will be sold. That was a concern. A lot of concern about privacy issues have already been brought up by other groups. More concern about, you know, if we have access to this information on Zillow, why do we need it on the government's dime? Let's see. For someone else brought up that whether or not 10 plus unit rentals will be included in this, or if it will only be 10 plus unit rentals. What is the city doing to address root causes to this? What about the water issue? Let's see. I think that's just about it. Well, there was some concern about property owners having to deal with rising insurance rates, HOAs, and property taxes going up, and how will this be addressed if we're going to address other issues?
The concern was just to regulate and balance the incomes of tenants versus the rentals. La preocupación que me dieron las personas fue nada más regular y que tuvieran un balance entre los ingresos de las personas y lo que tienen que pagar de renta.
Thank you, everybody. That was a lot of information. So I hope the last hour and a half was worth your time to come and share your thoughts and concerns with the city. What are the next steps? Where are we going to be going from here? City staff will analyze the information gathered at the town hall session this evening to start to draft a rental inventory ordinance. We will also take all of the comments that you've made today. We will post those on our Have Your Say website. We will also have them as part of the city council packet when the draft ordinance goes to the city council. And we'll also try to answer some of the questions that were raised this evening. In terms of next steps, I'm thinking that the rental inventory will probably be in front of the city council this summer. At some point, we actually haven't started drafting the ordinance as requested by the council yet, but we will start that after this evening. If you are interested in monitoring this, we do have a website, haveyourSayMonterey.org/rental inventory. You can subscribe there, so future you'll get personal emails on future outreach meetings or the upcoming city council meeting, particularly you should be interested in. The other opportunity coming up on June 13th, the Planning Commission is going to begin to debate adequate sites for our regional housing needs allocation, which is rezoning parts of Monterey to accommodate an additional 3,654 housing units. There were a lot of questions about supply here this evening. So if you're interested in the supply conversation, that starts June 13th at Planning Commission. I believe it's June 20th at Council and June 28th at the City Council. So there's a lot happening in housing right now. I appreciate all your efforts tonight. Myself and Nazanin are here to answer any questions you have on more specific issues if you would like to have those answered personally. So thank you very much for coming, and we'll make sure all this gets to our City Council. Thank you.
All right. So thank you everyone for attending. I've got you back here on Zoom. I just want to let you know that I've recorded all of the questions that are still open in the Q&A. Thank you so much for submitting those. We'll make sure that those get typed up and we'll do our best to address them, especially for folks that have their names attached to them. And maybe we can reach out to you, but we will do our best to address them and put them on our Have Your Say Monterey page in the future. All right. Thank you so much and have a great night.